Hello, everyone. This is Kerwin of Father Son Galaxy. Our guest is Jamiel Owens, an author, advocate, father, and creator of the Ausome Show, a platform used to support and encourage other fathers of children with autism. It is a safe space where dads discuss their experiences, emotions, and challenges related to raising children with special needs. The Ausome Show also offers resources, education, and a sense of community for fathers navigating this journey. Besides his role as content creator, Jamil was a law enforcement officer. He is currently the Family Relations Coordinator at the Center for Autism Research at the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia and a volunteer firefighter. Jamil, welcome to Father Son Galaxy.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for having me. Anytime people read my bio, I kind of get embarrassed because I hate when it's just something with me. I try to be as humble as possible, but you start reading down everything that I've done and you're like, wow, like this guy, he might be kind of interesting, but I'm always bashful when I hear everything. So thank you though. Thank you
Yeah.
for having me here.
Well, you've done so much more, so that's why I'm looking forward to having this conversation with you. So we're going to talk about it.
Yeah, definitely.
What I want to know is I wanted to start off by asking you, well, if you could describe what your life was like before the birth of your son, Shane.
Whew. So we're going to keep it as transparent as possible. I was born to a very young mother. She was 17 when she actually had me. And originally I was born in Houston, Texas. So I was born there. And then right before the age of 1, we moved up to Philadelphia, actually North Philly to be exact. In that move and that transition, her and my dad, for some reason, separated. So it was a single parent home. My mom was up here. She was a kid raising a kid, just trying to navigate the world as a young woman. And, you know, I was loved. I was loved by her. I was loved by, family members that are up here in Philadelphia, but it was, her. She was my dad, my mom at the time. She was the enforcer and also the coddler at the same time. We kind of grew up together as friends. I would say we had a very good relationship. Her request from me was to always do my best, and she believed in me. And her job, as she seen it, was to work and to provide as best as possible. And that sometimes can be hard for a single parent. And I don't want to isolate it to just a single parent as a mom, but both mom and dad. It can be hard for single parents to actually maintain that and do that. I found myself doing a lot in school academically because I was so good at education, at early education, and really good at just kind of conceptualizing facts, history, social studies, things like that. Math, it wasn't my best, but I did what I did, where I was getting a lot of accolades in school and playing instruments and trying to just stay busy. Never was a athletic person, but unfortunately, my mom was trying to put food on the table, so she was never at any of my award ceremonies or my musical rehearsals, unfortunately. And I can't say that it didn't hurt at the time, and even up to recently. I never really look at it as hurt because I knew my mom was doing something. Like it wasn't just like she was at home and she didn't want to participate. My mom would come home, make sure she make a pot pie for me, because we had a great relationship with the next door neighbors. She would let them know like, hey, I'm about to go to the second job. Can you make sure he's okay? And she would literally leave me in the house between the ages of 10 to 12 to really take care of myself. So I was really put in the position of authority in some nature before I even had a childhood. Then, of course, being the only child, you kind of get bored and you shoot yourself in the foot and you say, hey, I want a playmate. I want a brother and a sister. And then came along my little brother and, trying to help her raise my little brother. Unfortunately, my little brother's dad and her, that relationship didn't really last long. And what I notice now, obviously, because having a younger son now and witnessing postpartum depression and everything, my mom did have that. But I didn't know what that looked like back then. It was just me trying to help my mom out. And she would go to work and come home and literally go to her room. She would, play around with my brother. She would take care of him physically, but it was like she was drained and she would go directly to her room and I would actually take over, like almost like the night shift. The unfortunate circumstance at this time I was in high school, fast forwarding a little bit. I'm in high school, got accepted to Central High School. One of my biggest upsets in my life was not really graduating from Central High School. And I'll tell you, now what's the reason behind that. Unfortunately, with my mom not being within therapy to address her postpartum depression, she succumbed to some other psychosis that she was developing and no one knew, which was schizophrenia and depression. I'm in Central. I'm excited. That's the school she wanted me to go to. I'm doing well. And then it's like a bomb just hit me because my mom started not to trust me, her 16-year-old, at the time I was 16-year-old son. And it played a very pivotal role as far as how I viewed the world at that time. And I viewed it with anger because I was like, well, how can this happen to my mom? She's the only one I know. Like, what am I to do? The unfortunate cause of this, I didn't tell people at school. So I started to fail. My grades dropped. I didn't open up about what was going on at home. I opened up to one of my close friends, and he lived with his grandma and his mom. And that was one of the couches that I used to sleep on. I used to go around the house to house because my mom put me out at 16. The first night, I kind of thought she was joking, and I slept on the porch because I was like, all right, well, this is just one of her episodes. She'll blow over. I'll just knock on the door in the morning and she'll let me in. So I slept on the porch, and then I woke up in the morning and I knocked on the door and she would not let me in. And I sat there all day, not knowing what to do, having to use the bathroom, things like that. I didn't know what to do. So I stayed on the porch another night until I was able to use my next door neighbor's phone and call my friend, who I used to sleep on his couch, one of my main friends, Bruce. And I was like, listen, do you mind if I stay over there? It's a long story, but I'll tell you. And he was one of the underclassmen under me. So he said, yeah, sure. So from, at that time, North Philly all the way over to Southwest, traveled over there and let him know. He's like, listen, you can stay here. Definitely. You can use the shower and everything like that. Do you want to talk to somebody? But at that time, once again, I'm a 16-year-old knucklehead. I'm starting to build this anger. So I'm like, I don't want to talk to nobody. I just want to figure out what's going on with my mom and try to help her. So I would travel back and forth and try to talk to my mom, and it just wouldn't happen until like one day I went to the house, and the house was actually like boarded up, and she boarded the house up to kind of keep me out. But she had a paranoia about other people like police and anybody else trying to get in the house. And on top of that, she wasn't there. So I didn't even know. I was sitting on the porch, I was knocking. And then I'm like, you know what? I got to call the cops. So I called the cops, and they came around and picked me up, and they asked, do you live here? And I said, yeah. And they tried to knock on the door, and they're like, well, is there anybody home? And I'm like, I'm not sure. They were like, well, is your mom okay? I was like, well, I don't see her car, so she's not here. They couldn't break into the house because they couldn't verify me because I didn't have an ID at that time either. So they said, well, do you have somewhere to go? And I said, well, the only person relatively close would be my great grandmother. So they took me over to my great grandmother's house. And I remember this is another trauma that I went through. But in the back of the paddy wagon, they just got finished with a homicide. And it was literally blood in the back of the paddy wagon where I was like riding in. And I'm just sitting back there like, like this can't be life. Like this literally at one moment I'm sitting there and I'm doing my best in school. I'm achieving. I'm in the care of what I consider my mom, but also my best friend. And then the next moment, I don't even know who this woman is anymore. And she kind of just released me to this world. So I remember another part of that, arriving at my grandma's and walking up the block. And I was so distraught. I was crying. I remember my face breaking out really bad because I was just so stressed out. And everybody on the block knew me from my grandma's neighborhood, but they were trying to figure out why was I there during the week at that time because they're like, well, he should be in school. So I came inside their house and what great grandmothers do, they try to console you. And I wasn't having that. I just wanted to go upstairs. I went upstairs, I took a shower, and then I stayed in my room for about a good 3 days. And that was like the pivotal part of me, unfortunately, canceling out being a kid or a young teenager. And I figured in my mind, this is now adulthood. I have no choice but to be an adult because I don't know what's going on with my mom. Long story short, kind of fast forward, obviously I got kicked out of Central. Once again, one of my faults that I have in my life. I wish I would have at least graduated with a high school diploma. I developed my, what went, got my GED and just worked 2, 3 jobs. One of the key things about this is that I never got therapy. I figured if I work, I would kind of get rid of all this negative mindset that I might have in me. So I just worked and I worked and I worked. My mom during this time was living out of her car with my little brother. Now she would take care of my little brother to the utmost respect, but herself and her belongings, she wouldn't. So our home in which we grew up in, me and my little brother, was actually foreclosed. I wasn't able to retrieve anything from that house, so that was gone. And then I didn't know where my mom or my little brother was until she was arrested for assaulting a police officer. And then at that time, my little brother was about to go into the foster care system. And I was, me, I was out here working and doing whatever I can to kind of make a living for myself. I moved out of my great grandma's house because of that age difference. You're talking about a beautiful woman that was born in 1913, right? That's seen everything in history, who was grown up on, who was raised, excuse me, on very Southern biblical values on how to raise children and how to just be a respectable adult. And I wasn't having that. I was ready to draw blood from the world, eye for eye, tooth to tooth. So we didn't see eye to eye. Quite frankly, I took advantage of her and in my anger, and I just was like, I gotta leave. So I left, got my first apartment myself with a slumlord, but I didn't know. I was just happy to have my own place. And then I found out about my little brother. Thankfully, my grandmother took him in. So went through the whole system. He was accepted to live there and he was able to finish out school with her. Very, very prominent school. He was able to go to school, finish out school with him. And, I just stuck to survival, and then, trials and tribulations through life. I met Shane's mother, who happened to go to Central, and I never noticed her. That was the funny part. I never noticed her, but she knew who I was. And we met because I was working one of my many jobs. I literally had about 6 jobs, literally had 2 full-time jobs, and the rest of them was part-time. That's how much I was trying to dilute what was going on with me in the trauma sense. But anyway, me and her got together and she was dealing with a lot of traumas. And I don't want to speak on those out of respect for her, but it was literally an imperfect person trying to cure another imperfect person. And while, she's an amazing mother, she's an amazing woman, it didn't work out for us. We was butting heads. I was not fully a man yet. I was still trying to relive the childhood and the young teenage years and the young adulthood that I lost because I had to grow up too fast. And, we got married, but we had Shane right afterwards. And then we started to go into, divorce, actually separation and then divorce. So yeah, I told you it's kind of deep. A lot of my story, a lot of people don't know a lot of my background, because when you meet me, you'll be like, okay, this is a cool guy. He's fun. He's really passionate about helping the neurodivergent community. He loves his son, but you don't know that story behind me. Whereas though, if you follow a world script, I shouldn't be this type of person. I should be in jail. I should be possibly deceased. There was different avenues that I should have went down, but God didn't have that for me. So I'm very happy to be here.
Yeah. Knowing your story now, you're right. I, didn't know about this part of your life. It does explain where you are now. I don't want to jump too far ahead, but are starting to connect right now. But I
Yeah.
wanted to talk about how we know each other because we have a connection that we're both raising boys who are autistic.
Mhm.
When usually, from my experience, I can only speak from my experience, there were maybe some signs or some milestones that we saw in Maceo that we were expecting to see. For example, Maceo didn't start walking until he was 18 months.
Okay.
And his older brother, started walking at 10 months.
Oh
So
wow.
that was
Okay.
one. And then, Maceo had a very difficult time expressing himself in words, only sounds.
Yeah.
So that was something that came to our attention, and we thought that maybe we should get him tested. Were there signs that you saw in Shane that said to you, okay, well, something, we're not sure what's happening, but we need to find out?
Yeah, there definitely was signs, and the signs that Shane exhibited were subtle at first, but then became some of the normal characteristics that are defined when you speak about autism and neurodiversity, right? So the real delay that happened with observing these and actually saying, you know what, there's something going on with my child, was the fact, once again, I'm still dealing with trauma. I have a first child that I didn't even have a father to show me what the example of this looked like of being a father. And then I had drama between me and my wife at that time. So I kind of skipped over a lot of the things that I look back now and be like, "Ooh, yeah, that would have been a red flag, or that was something that I should have, noticed." I think the one particular one that I'll tell you briefly about this episode was, me and his mother, we were both working jobs. I did overnight. She did during the day, kind of help out with babysitting costs. And I would come home tired, and it was like flyby. And she came inside the house, and she left. And I would literally put him in his packet play, his crib. And I would literally go on the couch and fall asleep, like dead to the world. He would be in there. That's how crappy I was as a father, because I was just tired and going through so much. This day I didn't do that, and I was extra cranky. So I let him get out, and we had a sun porch. He went onto the sun porch, and he had Thomas the Train trains. So he loved those. We bought a bunch of them for him. And on the radiator cover, he lined the trains up exactly to the edge. When I mean exactly to the edge, if you took a magnifying glass, you would literally see where the plastic is like hanging off of the edge, but it's like maybe a quarter of it is still on there. And he would have it, and then he would stem, and he would go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And I caught him, and I went out there, and he was going like a mile a minute. Like, he was going back and forth, back and forth. And at that moment in time, it was fear and it was anger, because I was like, Shane, stop. And he was like going faster and faster. And I'm like, Shane, stop. And he wouldn't. So I tell this every time I speak, but I pushed him. I literally pushed him because I wanted my son to stop. And when I pushed him, all of the trains came falling down, and he just started just having a total meltdown. Like I've never heard him cry like that before. And I'm like, you need to stop crying. And I turned around and I started crying, because I knew deep in my heart, I'm a new father, but I know that's not typical behavior. And I know there's something going on. So I kind of gathered myself and went back out to the sun porch. And as soon as I got out there, I'm like, I got to make this right. I got to at least hug him or anything. Shane got up. He picked up his trains. He lined them up exactly again. And he went right back to stemming. And I'm like, I got to talk to his mom. And I just left it alone. I didn't hug him. I didn't acknowledge. I didn't apologize. I said, I got to talk to his mom. So we had a conversation, and I came to her. It was like, listen, we're not on good terms, but there's something going on with Shane. And she ultimately came out and said, I've noticed some things too, but I didn't want to say anything. And I said, okay, then we need to go ahead and get him tested.
Yeah, yeah. And how old was he when he was first diagnosed?
3.
3. Okay.
Yeah.
And then what was your reaction when you were told about the diagnosis?
I wanted to leave. I was already in a preposition to leave something that was too hard for me, right? Because I had an example already. I had a person that left me, a father that left me. So I felt like I should leave. This is not right. I don't deserve this. This is not what my ideal situation of my child should be like. At that time I didn't like my wife. So I wanted to roll. I just I remember sitting, because funny enough, we got diagnosed at CHOP, and I remember sitting in a room, and the doctor gave us the results and said he is on the spectrum. This is what we're finding. At the time, high functioning was the term that we use. He is high functioning. These are the things that we suggest for you. It was cold. It was like, I don't care. I want to be out. You know.
It's interesting that when, if you're any parent who has experienced this, where you go into the doctor's office, so you're told that your child has autism, you're not really given any other details other than that this child has autism. Like, well, what do you do? Like, where do you go outside of, you have a piece of paper that provides support that he has a diagnosis, and then you take it to an educator, and get him enrolled or her enrolled in some type of schooling. Who was one of who was one of the first persons that you were able to get your answers, the answers, the questions that you had answered? Like, was there somebody that you turned to and maybe directed you, put you in the right direction and say, okay, well, this is what you need to do, or this is where you need to go? Did you have someone like that at the beginning?
No, no, I didn't. The funny thing is, my dad came back into my life. He searched for me after Shane got the diagnosis. It was literally like maybe a couple of months afterwards, and he came back into my life, and it wasn't. We're great now. Like, we're great. He loves Shane and everything, but it wasn't no. Hey, Dad, you missed all this time. Like, what do I do in this situation? I didn't open up to him. He didn't open up to me. He asked me for acceptance back. I granted that. I just said, be here for your grandson. That was it. It was just be here for your grandson. Be here for me. And I didn't get a eye opener per se until later on. And we can wait and kind of discuss that. Or if you want me to go into it now, it wasn't until a couple years after this.
Yeah, yeah, let me know. At some point,
Yeah.
someone came into your life and opened doors for you, or answered the questions that you had. Who was that person? You don't have to name names, but what does this person tell you that really, enlightened you and said, "Oh, okay, I know what to do next. I know where to go. I know what I need for my son."
And okay, so I don't want to make this a spiritual thing, but it was God.
Sure.
And
Hmm.
I'm going to tell you a little bit why, because as you asked me, it was like, hey, what was your thought process after hearing the diagnosis? I wanted to go. So I facilitated me leaving my family after that diagnosis, and I fully went through with the plan, and I succeeded. I fully succeeded. So I was absent from Shane already, back and forth, because of the turbulence me and his mother had, my wife at that time. But you want to add 2 more years to that. I wasn't in Shane's life. Like, I was out. I was working. I was doing my thing. I totally separated myself from my son and his mother, my soon-to-be ex-wife, and I got a call from his mom one day, and I'm just like, all right, here we go again. And I picked up the phone, and she's like, listen, I'm not trying to fight, but your son just called the trash man daddy. I think you need to come see where your son is at. And at that time, I'm talking about a vicious cycle of just working, partying, spending money, not just being really respectful or responsible with my time, with my resources. I didn't have a car. I was on SEPTA, and I was like, I gotta go see my son. Like, there was something in me was like, I gotta go see my son. So I took the bus up there, and I went to her residence, and she's like, listen, you can't come in my place, but you can sit outside with him. And I still have that picture to today. And we sat outside and we did pictures. And I'm like, listen, I don't care what I got to do. I'm going to come up here and I'm going to be with you from this point on. I apologize. And I worked it out with her. We went through the whole court system. That's another topic. But I said, this is where it starts right here. And then God started to work on my heart to really say, like, I understand you're mad because your mom is not here, but I don't need you to take this out on your son, because your son is a gift from me, something tangible, because you're hard headed and you can only learn by having something in your hands. So I'm giving you a piece of me that you can actually love every single day, that will help you be a better man down the line. He's going to stop you from possibly death or being locked up. You just don't see it yet. That's literally what Shane was doing, was transforming my heart. I didn't have a roadmap, but he had a roadmap for me, and it was first accepting my son and being involved in his life.
Yeah, that's a beautiful story. You had a life of trauma, and at some point, you had to realize that you didn't want this trauma to be generational. You didn't want to bring this on with your son and have him take on this trauma and then carry that forward. So, you had an intervention and you understood that, okay, well, I need to focus on my son. And then, what's happened to me, that's something that I'll have to, work on. I'll have to talk to somebody about that. But it's
Mhm.
not fair for me to pass that trauma on to my son. And at what point did you decide I'm just looking at where you are, and you're talking about where you came from. Community was important to you. So I'd like to know, how did you start building a community to help you raise your son?
I started to, because his mom was, she got the diagnosis. She hit the ground running, started reading books, articles, reaching out
Yeah.
to other moms. Like she was really navigating the space, but we were in this pettiness where the information wouldn't be shared from me. So, and thankfully, because the communication barrier between men and women can be very hard and very difficult and can be very frayed on both sides. I had to learn this for myself. So I started to go to what I knew best was like kind of social media and kind of connecting on there with other autism parents and reading some magazines. Time magazine had an article out at that time. I picked that up, started reading that. But then it kind of went from me reading to me being like, all right, I need to do something because everything that I was reading, and this is no disrespect because I love everybody, but everything that I was reading reflected from an old Caucasian physician. It reflected from an individual who may not even had children, but were specialized in that particular specialty category of practice. But I didn't see anybody that looked like me, that talked like me, that had traumas like me and persevered through. So then I was like, well, if it's nobody there, why don't I become that person? But if I become that person, then I have to really indulge myself in not being, excuse the language, an a-hole and opening up my heart to other people who may not even look like me on the strength of learning and accepting and building connections and being able to gather information and resources to be able to articulate that to other fathers who may be in the same predicament as me or something other. So it was a task and I thought about it and I was like, well, what am I going to do? And then I was like, a podcast. And I was like, but I never done a podcast before. And you're talking about 2014 now. And I'm like, I don't know where to begin. I never did public speaking. I don't know. I did work at radio. So I worked at Power 99 WDAS for a little bit as an account executive. So I knew the sales part. But as far as like being on air, I always knew like I could do it, but I never had any formal training. So I just started it. I just kept on reading, kept on connecting with people, introduced myself. I told them a little bit of my story and what I wanted to do. And what people kept on telling me was thank you because we don't have enough male voices in this space. And whatever you need, we're here to support you. That's all I kept on hearing. And I'm talking about people through social media in UK, across the pond, in Australia and Indonesia. I'm connected with all these people that I would have never connected with because of things that were happening in my life and how my mindset was at that time. But I knew in order to make these connections and be that person that I needed to open my heart. And Shane helped me through that because I seen the beauty in him. Then I started seeing the beauty in your child and their child and his child. And I'm like, they're all connected. And I'm like, they don't look the same, but they're all connected. So I have to be able to do that.
Yeah. That's very interesting. And that makes sense. Well, you said you've had so many people come up to you and say thank you. I want to be another person to say thank you. Because when you get this diagnosis and you given this information and all you want to do is make the best decisions for your child, and that we knew, my wife and I, and even my son Keith knew, that we are the ones with the voices and Maisha doesn't have a voice right now, and we are his advocate, and we have to make sure that he is treated just like anybody else. It's a very rough road, as you know. It's very difficult to change people's minds. They have a mindset, as soon as they look at him, they have their idea of what this child is, regardless of whether they know that he has special needs or not. They just know, well, he's very loud. Well, he's very noisy. Oh, he drops to the ground. For many, many years, I felt as a father very alone because I didn't know any other fathers who had children on the spectrum. None of my buddies had child on the spectrum. My brothers, my sister, no one. So yeah, so it was hard. But the one thing that we didn't want to do is to hide our child and to be ashamed of who he is. After a while, maybe you've experienced this, when you go into places like restaurants and supermarkets and, you get those looks from people, Maceo makes noises and, they look at you funny and, they stare at you. it used to bother me at the beginning, but now it's like, look,
Yeah.
you don't walk in my shoes, you don't live my life.
Yeah.
But I wanted to say to you, thank you for telling me that I'm not the only one, and then directing me to meet other fathers and be a part of the Autism Fathers Conference and
Yeah.
the autism group that's
Yeah.
sponsored by Drexel University. So that was
Yeah.
very helpful, extremely helpful. So thank you.
Thank you, brother. It is a scary situation for everybody, but for men, we're programmed by society to keep our mouth shut and keep on pushing. But when it gets too much of a load, and majority of us don't have a spiritual connection, or we fall or falter from that, how we're going to push, that's going to lead for our household suffering. And I'm a prime example of it. I 100%, I'm a prime example of it. So I'm really adamant about sharing and kind of uplifting other men, even if they're like, yo, well, I haven't seen my child in like 3 months. You know what? I acknowledge you for doing it right now. You have it in your heart to do it right now. I'm going to help you do that and let you know that it's not going to be easy, but you can do this. That's what I'm here for, because I didn't have that. Just like you, I didn't have that in the beginning. And I know what it feels like, and I don't want another man to feel like that. So I appreciate you, acknowledging me for that. It's just, it came off of me not having that, and feeling that hurt and that pain. And that's something that you can't shake off. It's not that easy to shake off.
Tell me about your position at CHOP. Was that your way of giving back to CHOP? I'm not sure if that was the place where you would go to get, was that the place that you went to take your son to get the diagnosis? Or did you feel that they had the resources to actually advocate for kids on the spectrum? Like, why did you want to work for CHOP?
So here's the thing. I'm telling you, it's crazy. I tell this story all the time. I only been a CHOP. Well, I'm a CHOP baby when I was up here because I have a physical disability called an AV fistula on my right leg. So I do represent the disabled population to a certain aspect of it. I don't let it stop me. But when it comes down to advocating, I'm for not only just those who are neurodivergent, but for everybody that falls under this umbrella. I'm really advocating for them, just to kind of see who I am and how I do and how I move in this space. But it was the diagnosis and then the feeding program. So Shane went into the feeding program at CHOP. At the time, I wasn't working. So me and his mom worked it out. I did the feeding program with him for the month, which built a bond with me and Shane, because I was there to hear his crying when he wouldn't get his way, but I was also there to see his triumphs when he was doing the program right. And then I was able to kind of share my thoughts and opinions with those practitioners that was there during that trial. So I did that. Then, I went into law enforcement, and that's where I thought I was going to go, because I always like to protect people. So, life happens. I lost jobs and kind of navigate through everything. And I put in an application for security at CHOP in 2018. I got a call because my wife was pregnant with our now youngest son. And I'm like, how are we going to afford insurance? I'm stressing here. And I'm like, okay, this is not good. And they called me in 2020. Was like, hey, are you still interested in a job? And I'm like, yeah. So then they told us, and they were like, well, this is the shift that you will work. It was afternoon shift, like mid shift. Told me all the benefits and everything. We're like, yeah, 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 let's get that. So got the job there, started working. And funny enough, my building where I'm at now, Robert's building, I found out that on the fifth floor where I work at, that there's the Center for Autism Research. And I'm like, I need to work on this floor. I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I need to work on this floor. I remember the day that I was driving past the building, and I was like, God, I don't know how I'm going to do this, but I need to work in that building. Well, mind you, while all this is happening, I started the Ausome Show in 2014. Ever since 2014, I've been doing my show. I've been doing community events. No roadmap or anything. on top of everything that's happening in my life. I'm coming out, I'm speaking, I'm doing speaking engagements, writing books, all this stuff while I'm working regular jobs that I really don't like. And then one of the directors for the Lynn program at CHOP invited me to come speak. And I was like, okay, that's a great thing. So I remember I did my podcast show because it was on online television in Jersey, drove over, had my uniform hanging in the bathroom at the Roberts building. And I was like, well, I'm going to do this presentation, and then I'm going to change it to my uniform and go over to the main campus. So that's what I did. And then she stopped me before she left out and said, I think there's a position here for you. I'll have somebody reach out to you. They reached out to me. And I'm like, yeah, I'm excited. They're telling me everything. Meanwhile, I'm in the hospital because my wife water broke. So we're about to have a baby. And I'm like, yeah, when I get back, definitely I would like to sit back. But then on the job description, it says you need a bachelor's degree. And I'm like, here's the problem. I don't have a bachelor's degree. I have a GED. I said, I know I could do the job hands down because I've already been doing it, but I don't have that. If you can't overlook that, I understand. I'm in security. Maybe something else will come up, but it is what it is. They said, give us 2 weeks. We'll be in contact with you. I said, okay. 2 weeks, I swear, brother, they removed the bachelor. They removed that requirement. And then I interviewed with everybody in the infrastructure, my colleagues in which I work with now, from the director of the program, Dr. Schultz, Robert Schultz, shout out to Bob. Every single one of them was like, Red, we seen your social media presence. We seen what you do. We have full confidence in you. You can do this job. That's all I've been hearing is you can do this job. And the rest is history. I've been here ever since.
Have you learned since you've been working for the Research Institute?
I've learned a couple things. One, I am not that important. What I mean by that is, you, you know, yes, you see my name, you see my face, you see titles, but at the end of the day, it's not about me. I am not that important. I learned to humble myself every single day, even when I'm getting awards and accolades, because I know it's not by my own strength that I'm in this position. It's really not. You know what I have background. I have none. And I'm working around doctors that have prestigious degrees who have had GPAs higher than what I ever had. And I'm in a position where they listen to me and we work together collectively for the better good of the community. So that's the first thing, is that it's, I'm nobody. I'm nobody in this. The second thing is that there is a distinct disconnect between the community and the healthcare organization. And this has been somewhat for years, but especially after COVID, something that we're still trying to recover from. And what these doctors want is a connection to this community, but it's a hard puzzle to put together, right? How do you be a professional and be very good at your job and outgoing as far as finding new therapies and new opportunities, but still connect with the community in a way that transcribes information that makes sense to them? It's not an easy fix for a lot of physicians, and that's where I come in as far as outreach. So that's another thing I learned, is that everybody has faults, right? And you don't point out those faults, you point out solutions to make those faults disappear. So I have grown professionally to be able to articulate to a program director or a vice president, a VP, down to Lil Mookie on the corner on 32nd and Girard. Like, I'm able to do that now. And it's a great feeling because they look at me, for the people in the community, they look at me as though they have an ally. Hey, somebody been in my shoes before. And then the doctors and the physicians I work with say, hey, we value you, because I'm not from that area and I don't know. But I know I have an ally in you that can connect me to that, so I can be more robust in the community and that we serve. So it's really taking social norms out of my mindset to really see people for who they are and the fruit that they actually grow. So that's the other thing that I learned. And the third thing is that, autistic individuals are some of the most beautiful, God gifted people on this planet. And people don't really understand what it is to befriend or even love an autistic person like your child. Like, it's something that fuels you more than anything else in this world. I can look at everything that I have here and tell you, if it wasn't for Shane, I wouldn't have my house. I wouldn't live in a nice neighborhood. I wouldn't have a sustainable car that's very nice that I shouldn't have. I wouldn't have these things, but Shane opened my heart to be able to push forward, to put me in positions where I met people, to open my heart to be able to talk to people and not disrespect them, to take criticism and not get mad. That propelled me into other positions. So to befriend these people, you don't ask, hey, what can I get from you? But it's like, what can I learn about life from you? You get me? That's every person that I come in contact with through the center, every family that I help, every family that helps me. I'm always learning something, and I'm gaining vast knowledge about this community that's often overlooked, and I'm willing to share it with others. So those are the three things. If I had to sum it down, those are the things.
That is excellent. So you mentioned that you used to work in law enforcement, and you have expressed the importance of people who are on the spectrum know and understand what to do when they encounter a police officer. Can you talk more about that?
Yes. So I'm glad you you bring that up. So I want people to understand me when I say this. I have the unique pleasure of looking at it from different perspectives as a parent and caregiver, as a professional with the healthcare industry, and as former law enforcement first responder experience. There needs to be more training specifically to our law enforcement and first responders in connection with autism. The reason why is because if you look at, and this is just me looking at it, but if you look at the term disability, right, and you look at the human perception of disability, disability is, okay, I see someone in a wheelchair. You go back, you see commercials that somebody's disabled. You see them either in a crutch, a wheelchair, missing a limb, something that's deformative, and I use that term lightly, respectfully, about their physical features. People who fall in this category, I want to clarify that, are the most brave and amazing people because they've been given less, and they accept it, and they are humbled by that, and they still fight every day to love people who have everything, right? So I just want to say that before I go on. But those who are neurotypical don't fit in that category, right? Because physically they look just like you and me. They present like you and me. They may be strong like you and me. They may be taller. They may be husky. All these things. But yet their cognitive thinking is not incorporated with their age, their age, their numerical age. So most of the time we call it an invisible disability. So how do you, for example, look at the force continuum? The force continuum is the levels of force that as an officer you choose to use in order to get a subject or a person to adhere to your demands or your actions, right? You're asking them to be complacent with your questions, right? The use of force continuum is what we're taught. So as officers, we have to see what the threat is, what use of force we will have to use, and what is justified as far as that force. So the bottom line, the first amount of force is just simple presence. Just the simple presence of an officer in uniform is on the force continuum. That is the very bottom line, right? And as you go on, obviously you've seen on the news because, using the use of weapons, deadly force, that is the top and most lethal force. That is because there is a threat not only to the officer, but to the person who is being the subject of the matter and also everybody around. But where does neurodiversity fall in that use of force? Where do our loved ones fall in that force continuum? And I need officers not to say, oh, well, here we go, another hater of the force. I don't. I love law enforcement. But when my son is stopped by you and Shane gets nervous and he starts to get twitchy and he's moving back and forth and he starts to etch back a little bit because he feels as though he's getting too close and he needs room to breathe and decompress before having the sensory meltdown. Where does neurodiversity fall in the force continuum that you won't immediately go for impact weapons that might be a expandable baton to strike him because you think you're being defiant, or worst case scenario, lethal weapon because maybe he has that flight scenario. Now, on the flip side of that, I'm going towards the parents. You need to have a conversation, if possible, in teaching your loved one on what interactions with law enforcement looks like. So how do you do that, Jay? You do that by going around to your local law enforcement office, introducing yourself, going around to the local fire department, introducing yourself, letting your loved one see what an officer looks like, see the red and blue lights, the car, the fire truck, in the SB, in the tank, in the mask, in all the gear. That's the accountability that you have as a parent. So that now we're playing tennis with law enforcement. Up, you know what? I took my loved one to the station. You guys seen my loved one. If they have a premise report, I put my child, my loved one's information in the CAD system. So it doesn't matter if you get a part timer or someone from a different district as a lateral change. When they come on shift and they get a call from my house because my son or my daughter is having a meltdown, accountability is in the system. I did my part. Now it's time for your part in order to come to this situation and handle it in a less lethal fashion. That's how these interactions need to take place. We got to get checked as a parent and we got to get checked as law enforcement. But when we're checking each other, we're still sitting down at the table and be like, okay, now that we got our feelings out the way, how do we make this safer for our loved ones moving forward? What does that look like? And that's what I teach. That's what I teach. You know, I do trainings with law enforcement now. That's what I teach to them, not through CHOP, through another organization, you know, outside of my roles at CHOP. But that's what I teach because I know this is what needs to happen. There is not one agency in this entire country that can tell me that they have consistent training for autism. You can't tell me. I've been through the training academy. You can't tell me.
Yeah. Part of it is the fear that some communities have with speaking with their law enforcement, and, it's obvious that, especially with our community, our Black community, our relationships can be strained.
Mhm.
So it's a lot easier for maybe for other folks to approach a police officer and talk to law enforcement, explain to them that uh, they have a child that's on the spectrum, just like to introduce you to them. You know, um, that was something that we did when we were living in Upper Marion. Tanya, my wife, decided that I want the local law enforcement to know who our children are. So there were occasions where they would have, maybe like a day where the police will come out and go into the neighborhood, and they'll have kids come out and have some food and some drinks, and they'll have them go inside the vehicles and play with
Yeah.
the lights. Yeah. We're in a new neighborhood now, so we don't know our law enforcement as of yet. But you know, as far as your outreach, are there particular places that you're going to for law enforcement? Is it just the Philadelphia area, or have you branched out to other locations and counties in Pennsylvania?
You know, I did. So I do also, along with my Autism Fathers Conference, the Autism Town Halls, right? That bridge the gap between law enforcement, first responders, and the autism community. So the second one, so the first one you guys came to over where I live at, that was my first event with my own fire company. But the second one with the Norristown Police Department, a lady saw my post on social media. That's why social media has its pros and cons. It's not all pros, it's pros and cons. But she was in Utah. She was a teacher in a school in Utah. And she took this to her superintendent and said, I think I should go here. And the superintendent in the school paid for her to fly over from Utah to come to my event to see how I actually did this. And the only reason, once again, how I knew this is because I was leaving the event and she was standing there. And I'm like, ma'am, are you okay? So we're in Norristown, right? So, Norristown is not, let's keep it real, it's not the safest place for a special, especially for a certain demographic. People use that. They can look at you and be like, oh, they're not from around here. So I'm like, ma'am, are you okay? Is there anything I can, help you with? I'm the organizer for this event. And she's like, oh, you organize it? And we started to talk. And she's like, yeah, well, my ride should be here, and then I'm going to catch my flight home. So I'm like, flight home? I'm like, well, where you come from? And she's like, oh, I flew here from Utah. And I'm like, you flew here from Utah to be at this event? And she's like, yeah. She was like, it's amazing. We need something like this over in Utah. And ever since then, we've been working together. I wrote a letterhead to the chiefs of police over there, outlining everything that I basically did for this event to hopefully start it with her so she can look at that outline and say, okay, this is what he did. I'm going to take this, but I'm going to remove this and make it her own event and start working with her community over there because I can't do everything. I'm not supposed to do everything. It's
Sure.
not about me. So I work with anybody. It doesn't, you give me a call and like, hey, I want to talk about, training. I want to talk about doing an event with you. I want to talk about maybe having a town hall where we invite the community out with our officers and we sit down and talk about those hard questions. That's what it's about. It's not about pointing a finger and sitting back and being part of the problem. It's like, okay, what are you doing to solve this problem? And by doing so, you are holding people accountable. You are pointing a finger, but you're also sitting down and saying, okay, what's our plan so we don't have another incident like Idaho where that young man was shot to death?
Well, you do have something coming up, a big event this
Yeah.
Saturday, August the 2nd. You want to talk about the autism play date?
I mean, first off, yeah, you should know because you guys are hosting it.
Yeah.
So, hmm, excuse me,
Yeah.
eighth annual Autism Play Day, 8 years. This was this responsibility to help plan it was given to me by a good brother, former council member at large, Derek Green, who him and his wife Sheila actually took this event and really made it their own and pushed it forward to the tri-state area as the one stop that you need to take your child, take your family before summer ends. As summer is dwindling down, this is the place you got to be. So I've been a part of this event for the past 4 years, a part of the planning of it for the last 3. And this event, once again, brings over everybody in the tri-state area. So we're talking about families of neurotypical children, neurodiverse children can come for this day. The council member, Kendra Brooks, is now the host for this event, this annual event. And, we've been working very hard to bring the best out of people, for families to be able to come to this event and say, you know what? I don't have to look over my shoulder as far as people looking at my child because we'll be around family. We'll be in a safe space. I'm going to bring my child here to learn how to interact with neurodivergent children, right? I want to get them well seasoned in the community to be a respectable, inclusive person as they grow older. And then also too, you have the people that will come there and be like, I need resources. And we'll have that at this event. So this is this year's special because it's Star Wars theme, right? I'm a Trekkie. So we're not going to go there. I love Star Trek. Star Wars, I grew up on. I get it. Everybody see Chewie and the Ewoks and all that. I know Star Wars,
Mhm.
but Star Trek, like I can pull out. I got stuff right here. Look, this is how bad. I got little gift things here, and this is how much I'm a Trekkie. I'm gonna show you one more thing, and then we get to the conversation. I even got a Star Trek alphabet book that I got for my youngest son, but I took it away from him because I said he won't cherish this like I would.
I gotcha.
So that shows you how much of a Trekkie I am. But this Saturday, we're going to have you guys out there hosting DJ Blake, an autistic DJ, world renowned. DJ Blake, shout out to DJ Blake and his mom and his dad. He'll be out there on the ones and twos. We're going to have free haircuts from Awesome Cuts, from the Berrien family. We have a game truck that's out there, Wild Games. We have 4 food trucks, reduced price menus, but for the first 100 people, children, let me specify that. So for the first 100 children that are registered and actually make it there, you're going to get 1 free ticket for any item off the food truck. So we're working here. We're making this a really big event. What else we got there? A magician show. We got Chase Books, Uncle Chase from Chase Books. He'll be there doing reading time. We have Mazden Music that will be doing a little music perception up there. So we have a lot packed into one day just to show the autism community that we love and care and we think about them on a daily and we want them to at least one day, if anything, kind of kick back and just look at their child interacting and just being playful and being themselves. So, and it's at Smith Memorial Playground. It's a beautiful spot.
Yeah. Yeah. Saturday, August the 2nd from 1 p.m. to 5 p.m.
1
Right?
p.m. to 5 p.m. Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Yes.
We are so excited to be a part of this. We thank you so much for including us.
Of course.
Yes.
Of course.
Father Son Galaxy will be there.
Of course.
Anything that you need from us, please let us know. But it was just very exciting. And I believe the weather's going to be very nice too. Like it's
The
going to
weather for
cool off.
first
Yeah.
for the first time ever. Listen, for the past 3 years, we have prayed to God, like, listen, these clouds is looking a little too scary. It has rained on one year. In the other 2 years, it was very cloudy and then it opened up. So for
Okay.
once ever this year, great weather. Come on out. There's
Okay.
no reason for you not to be out.
All right. So thank you so much, Jamil. I am so looking forward to this. This is wonderful. You have an incredible story. I am so glad to know you. Like I said, that you have been such a great help, not just for my family, but for me personally. I don't feel alone anymore,
Good.
that, I can call on somebody who has been through it, who understands what I'm going through and get some healing, and I'm going to pass that along to other brothers,
See,
and
there we go.
whatever questions they have or anything that I can provide to them, I am here. So thank you once again for being
Thank
on the
you.
podcast. Please let us know where people can find you.
I'm on social media. So Instagram under the Awesome Show. That's TheAusomeshow. Also my nonprofit Awesomeness. AusomeNessInc. That's also on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. You can, I say this respectfully without being vain, you can Google me and see everything that I've done, interviews such as this one, and just really get a kind of taste of who I am. But thank you. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to be on this podcast. You guys, one thing I want to say real quick, because this is really a salute to you. When I think about, people ask me, why do I like Star Wars, right? And I tell them, because as a kid, when I did get a chance to like sit down and be a kid for maybe 5 minutes or maybe get into that space, when I saw Star Trek, I didn't see racism. I didn't see hate. I saw anger of different cultures not understanding other cultures. But at the end of the day, when you talk about the Federation, it didn't matter. They had people that were green. They had people with scales on their head that was breathing like out the side of their neck, but they all worked together for the common good. And that's to explore new territories and to bring them in to a federation of love, right?
Mhm.
And I really would love my both my boys if they get into this, but if not, it's okay. But for people to hear that, and you're a part of that, you and Keith and your whole family, you guys are embracing a culture that is founded on love. The concept of the show is founded on love and exploring each other and bringing them together to mold these cultures into a commonality, right? A common union. So I definitely, want to salute you guys and keep on doing it, because people need to hear the message, and all the great actors and people that you guys connect with, and just your thoughts about, stuff that is coming out here. People just like to hear it. So thank you. Thank you for the space.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. Yeah, we love the community building, and it's a safe space. We all
Yeah.
need that,
Yeah.
especially these days, someplace where you can just be yourself,
Yep.
and be accepted. So we are honored once again to be a part of this event. And we enjoy what we do. We love what we do as well. So thank you so much. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Definitely.
And
Thank
you
you.
can find Father Son Galaxy on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. You'll be able to find us on your audio and streaming platforms. We also have a YouTube channel. So thank you once again, everyone, for tuning into this episode. Hope to see you on Saturday,
Grab it.
August 2nd. All right. From 1 to 5, Smith Memorial Playground. All right. Come out and have
Yep.
fun and enjoy the music, enjoy the food, enjoy Star Wars. Just have a great time. All right. So
Right here.
thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Until next time, take care, and we will see you again.